Are there some topics and questions that are worth chasing away customers for? What are those topics? And in this economy, why would you want to? Let's talk about that. Hey there, this is Perch. And, this is something that you hit on social media a lot. This topic comes up ever so frequently. And it's basically the idea of, are we chasing away consumers? Are we chasing away buyers? Or is the comic industry making it so that people won't buy comics? And the short answer to that is yes, but not nearly as much as people think. I think the warning signs, the storm clouds on the horizon, are if it continues, what does it do to the audience? And I think this is a question much bigger than just comics. I think this is media in general. As a country, if you live here in the United States, and I think this is true of the UK and several other places as well, we're getting increasingly divided. And we've been encouraged to be divided by people who make a lot of money off of it, whether it's media companies or politicians or news agencies. There's a lot of interest in keeping us divided as a society. It's profitable to keep us divided. You put out stuff that basically increases the threat. And, from a news perspective or a media perspective, we find that people consume a lot more news and a lot more media if they're scared, if there's a sense that there's danger ahead, and they'll buy more, they'll see more, and they'll also kind of be more attached. There's an old phrase that I've used a few times in the show called attach rate. And it's an old gaming term, but it's used everywhere. And it's basically, what's the attach rate to a game or to a console? So if a console is going to be sold, like, say, the new Xbox, what's the attach rate of games that are going to be sold with that new console? Somebody comes in, they buy the device, they want to buy some games to play with it right away. So you might say a console has an initial attach rate of like 3 games. Well, in comics, we could say, a customer comes in, a whale comes in, what's the attach rate of weekly comics to that customer? Are they buying 2 comics? Or are they buying 10 comics? And in general, you want to raise the desire for that attach rate up. And as I was saying, there are people who manipulate the current political and sociological environment to scare people, to get them worried. Because when people are worried, they tend to, as I said, they tend to buy more, and they tend to buy more loyally. What I mean by loyally, it means that even if they don't really like the product, they'll buy it anyway because they're making a stand. Now, you could argue that there's some people within the kind of the Indiegogos and the crowdfunding that are supporting those comics, even though they're not terribly interested in them. And that's not a blanket statement. I'm sure people are interested in some. But it is true that in some cases, people who are throwing their money behind some of the Indiegogos and some of the other comics that are going in at $25 a pop, well, they're doing that because they're trying to support what the Indiegogo or what the campaign is all about. They don't necessarily love those comics, but they do like the spirit behind them, and that's a good thing. Except when there's so many of those things all flying around at the same time, then it starts to feel a little manipulative. It starts to feel a little bit like we're dividing people in order to kind of get those buys. Now, I'm not pointing a finger at the Indiegogos or anything. That's much smaller change to the bigger topic of what I'm talking about, which is we, as a society, we're starting to divide into 2 groups. And the groups, and not starting to, we're well along the way. And there's Group A and Group B, and Group A is suspicious of Group B, and Group B is suspicious of Group A. And it's not as bad as it's portrayed on the news, but every week, every night, TV and our media is kind of encouraging us to get more divided. And the more divided we are, the more that we chase people away. And what, unfortunately, the other part of it and this is kind of the tipping point, the scary idea. So most people, we're talking back to comics again. Small time indie comic creators who really just want to sell, their dream is to sell 5,000 copies of a comic. Sure, more, but that's kind of the big number that they can kind of see, which seems unattainable, but it's kind of in the future. They're kind of trying to grab onto it. That group, they're trying to get to a very small number, so they can see that audience based completely within their bubble. So it's okay to post, things that kind of attack 50% of the country, or to even attack them directly, because in a lot of cases that stirs up their own base and they get attention and buys from that base. So that's all cool. They can live off that base. But bigger than that, you have big mainstream comic companies, and you have people taking that next step where you're moving from maybe an indie comic to Image, and now you're really trying to go further, and you're trying to, sell a book, but also maybe get a movie deal, or you're trying to do more with your property. And now suddenly your bubble, your base is maybe not enough. Well, it wasn't before. But increasingly, and this is why I say the scary thing is, you see people who are becoming kind of acclimated or used to or comfortable with the idea of, I'm going to go ahead and chase away half the audience. And that's just the cost of doing business. It's okay. I'm lowering my dream. My dream doesn't need to be 100,000 copies sold anymore. I'm comfortable with 50. I'm comfortable with just lopping off half of my audience, because you know what? The communists are bad. The dirty liberals are bad, and they need to be owned. The damn SGWs have to be destroyed. So I'm comfortable going ahead and just having half the audience I would normally have, or the other way around. And in mainstream comics, it's usually more the other way around. You know what? I don't want to sell to Nazis, so I'm not going to sell to Nazis or white supremacists or any of that. And you know what? It's okay. It's okay to make less money, because I don't want that dirty Nazi money. And if we are truly talking about, communist, evil, Nazi, whatever, if we were truly talking about those people for real, then yeah, I don't want their money either. I don't, I don't want that dirty blood money. But when you're talking about, half of the country who maybe just likes a different candidate than you, I mean, it's really, and people really object to this analogy, but it would be a bit like if you're in the Northwest saying, I like the Seahawks, and my opponent over here, this guy down the road, likes the Patriots, and screw the Patriots. I'm not selling a burger. I'm not selling a sandwich to the Patriots team. Those guys are a bunch of cheaters. I refuse. And going ahead and just lopping off that whole audience, and vice versa for the Seahawks. Sports rivalries are fine, but you don't spite your whole business for a sports rivalry. And certainly nobody in their right mind wants to see our politics become as kind of low dimensional dumb as sports. But here we are. And I think that's the danger sign I see in comics is I'm seeing more and more and more people become super comfortable with the idea of just, I'm just going to sell less. I'm okay with selling less. Don't be okay with selling less. The business is not big enough, it's not healthy enough to sustain just selling less because you don't like that other person. You need to be able to reach a bigger audience, which means you're going to have to accept the fact that not, the majority of people out there are not crazy communist Hitlers. The majority of people out there are actually normal people. I mean, and it's bad for our society. Think about this. If you're driving around listening to this, look around you. Look at the other cars that are passing you, or the people on the street, or wherever you are. If you're in an office listening on your headphones, look around at the other people in your office. Hey, half those people are Nazis. Now, how do you feel? I'm probably terrified, right? I mean, Christ, I would be. So maybe that's not healthy for us to view the world that way, because if you look around, the people around you are, basically probably just trying to get through the day, get home, get past their nasty commute. Maybe they're just trying to figure out how to survive the next 4 hours, this dumb office job. Maybe they're thinking about the next meeting, what they got to do for dinner, pick up the kids. I mean, who knows? But it's not healthy to view the world this way. But in comics, it's become normalized to say, I don't want half of the audience, because that half of the audience is bad. That's not healthy. So, I mean, the purpose is to basically I mean, I'm one tiny, tiny voice shouting out the wind. Our world is not better when we bubble it up, and it's certainly not better when we bubble it up and we kind of, take out all the doors. I think that's the part that I see a lot and that worries me, is that not only have the bubbles gotten very established in our society, but people are starting to like board up the doors and the windows to keep those bubbles from ever letting anybody else in. We're becoming very sealed off containers, and maybe we'll bring it back to comics again. The new Greg Capullo book out, where the U.S. just builds a wall around itself, and then people, the doors open up. People want to go see what's in the wall, what's in that country. That's how it feels sometimes, not just as a concept, but in life. It's like we're walling ourselves up, and we're not letting anybody else in. And whenever you do that, just crazy occurs within those walls. Like, even if you think you have a nice, Nazi-free, communist-free utopia, hey, good news, we ran all the SJWs out. It becomes Lord of the Flies, like dramatically fast. And if you are on comics Twitter, if you're looking at any of that, and you look at some of the clicks and some of the drama that catches up, and you look at even within the comics gate type community, and you see the warring that goes on from within itself, it's like, look, you did a good job. We finally, it did seem like, the sides kind of coalesced, and people just started blocking each other, and eventually we got the two bubbles. And then, with no daily fight to go on, the fight turns inward, and it becomes Lord of the Flies. The best analogy I can give. So it's not good. It's not good to do that, and it's not good for sales. And I think that there will be a battle over the next year. It's kind of turning into a prediction video, where you're going to hear more and more people say, "Hey, it's okay if we lose half our audience. It's okay if we sell half, because that other half is so nasty, so vile, so disgusting, so terrible. We don't want their money. Let's just learn how to live without it." And you're seeing, you see businesses. What is it? There's some knitting, some stupid knitting group online that's like, yeah, we don't want any, if you talk about any topic that any way relates to Donald Trump or Republicans, then you're banned and we're kicking you out. It's like they're saying, get out. And my question would be, for knitting, like, is knitting that strong? Is yikes? I think if we've hit knitting, I don't know. I worry about the future, folks. What about you? Hey, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think below. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for notification, and thanks for listening. Let's keep listening to each other. I think that's the biggest key.